Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to both Liberate Daily and Liberation Nation. It's kind of the day we intersect. And tonight we have Erika Kolenich. Kolenich? I'll never learn. I'm useless. I'm sorry. Help me, Erika. How do you say it?
Kolenich.
Kolenich. That's okay. Yeah. The really great news is you don't actually have to say it. You just have to vote for it. That's what's important.
Right.
So you are you're running for governor in West Virginia, yes?
Yes, that is a true story. Yes, sir.
Excellent. Toller did his homework. That's what Toller told me. So that's good. And so far we're on track. And I checked though. I did a little homework. So your parents were small business owners, is that right?
They were as I was growing up, and they still are actually. So.
Oh, good. What kind of business?
Yeah. They've owned various businesses over the years. Right now, what they operate is a convenience store that has a restaurant attached to it.
I got you. Yeah, I'm kind of from the same place. My grandfather owned a store. My parents owned a store. My dad was a beekeeper. My mom baked cakes, and we had a dairy for a while. It's just all over the place. And I don't know about Toller's history, but I know he's an independent trucker now. So we're all three sort of steeped in small business.
Right.
And then you played in high school band too, growing up.
I did.
What do you play? What did you play?
I was a drummer. I was in the drum line.
What did you play in the drum line?
Well, different things every year. Like most freshmen in the drum line, I started out with cymbals, and I think my senior year I left with snare drum. So nice. Different things every year.
Nice. I actually got to march with my high school band when I was in 8th grade, and I played cymbals. And, but the really awesome thing was we had a drum line that was like 80% female, and they were one of the top drum lines in Kentucky, and they were just fierce.
Wow.
But their thing was we would be on the field, and they would basically mutter profanity under their breath. That's how they got the show. But I don't know if any of those ever see me, but you ladies were awesome. You kind of shaped my life a little bit, but that was fun. And you kind of kept with the arts a little. Like you not only got a degree in political science, but you also got a degree in dramatic arts.
I did, yes. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a lawyer or an actress, so I did both for a while.
She became both.
There you go. Well, and I noticed I'm asking all the. You taking a break, Toller? Toller's kicking back tonight. You can kick.
No, I'm listening. I'm sitting right here. I'm listening.
All right. I just didn't want to take up all the space. That's all. And you passed both the Ohio and West Virginia bar exam. So my personal question on that is why?
Well, I'm from West Virginia, and I did not go to law school here in our state because I was pretty sure that I didn't want to live in West Virginia. I wanted to move away somewhere more glamorous, I suppose. So I went to law school in Northeast Ohio in a town called Akron, which was more glamorous than West Virginia, I suppose, to me at age 21. So I took the bar there because I started practicing law in Ohio first, and then I moved back to West Virginia later. So I took the West Virginia bar exam then.
Okay.
So you decided to stay home so you can run for governor and make the state better.
Exactly.
Nothing wrong
I
with
didn't
that.
know I was going to do that, honestly, when I moved back, but it's turned out that way, certainly.
but that ties into one of your issues, because one of your issues is actually I can talk real good. Youth retention, and you are a almost failed retained youth. I didn't quite say that in the best way, but you were someone who in your youth were looking at not being retained.
Correct. Yeah. I thought, like I think a lot of young West Virginia folks do, that I had to leave the state for both economic and cultural opportunity. I just felt like, West Virginia was a little small for me, a little backwards, and I was going to move to the city and go to museums and experience things and have this great career that I couldn't have in West Virginia. And the truth is, I was just misguided. I didn't really understand that I could have a far better life here in West Virginia than I could in almost any other place. I learned that as an adult and made the decision to come back home. But yeah, exactly. That's what inspired one of the main issues that I'm running on, which is retaining youth here in West Virginia. It's almost a cultural thing in our state that it's just generally accepted, not only by our young people, but by their parents and grandparents, that, if you're going to grow up and be something, you're going to leave West Virginia to do that. You're going to have to leave West Virginia for a job. You're going to have to leave West Virginia for opportunity. And that's just not true. It's something that we've made the narrative here in our state, but it's not true at all. And so part of my goals as governor is to not only educate people that that's not true, but change those things that causes people instinctually to believe that they have to leave West Virginia for opportunity. We're one of the only states, not one of the only states, but we're the state in, all of the United States that's losing population at the rate we are. In 2018, we lost over 11,000 people. They haven't come out with the numbers yet for 2019, but that's astronomical, especially considering how the overall United States population is growing. So it's a real problem for us.
Well, and have you looked at how it's changing your age demographics?
Yes. We're as you can imagine, with all the youth leaving the state, we're a very, very elderly state. Most of our residents are older, which certainly, is problematic in terms of, when you're talking about the economy and you want companies to come to West Virginia and you want them to locate here. If all the workforce is leaving here, they don't necessarily have a reason to come here. It's kind of a,
right.
What comes first, the chicken or the egg argument. But it is a significant problem. We have a very, very quickly aging demographic in West Virginia.
Right.
Now, I know. So I watched your show that you done with Larry Sharp. Actually, I watched it today, and I noticed that you said that the Libertarian Party in the state of West Virginia is the fastest growing party in the state. How is that going for you? I mean, is it actually members that's actually going to lean toward voting for you, or is it going to make it easier, I guess you could say?
I hope so. We shall see. What I can say is, and you probably heard me, maybe I said this on Larry's show, I'm not sure, but between 2016, the general election that year, and where we are now, we've almost doubled registered voters here in West Virginia in the Libertarian Party, which is fantastic. I'm hoping that translates to votes for me. I'm not sure, since I'm the first statewide election since 2016. It certainly seems like I'm getting a lot more volunteers for my campaign and a lot more support, maybe than prior statewide campaigns that we did. So I'm taking it that that's a good sign. And most of my campaign volunteers are younger, which is fantastic. And I take it as a good sign that most of my campaign volunteers aren't even necessarily libertarian. I have a ton of independents, a lot of Republicans, and a lot of Democrats. So I'm hoping I'm hoping that through my campaign, in the end, they become libertarians. But if not, I'll just take them volunteering for the cause right now.
Now, was getting on the ballot a pain for you? What's that like in West Virginia?
So it was not a pain for me. The gentleman that ran for governor in West Virginia in 2016 and 2012, his name is David Moran. He got the party ballot access. Yes, he got the party ballot access through a petitioning effort that allowed him to be on the ballot in 2012. In 2012, he secured the necessary percentage to maintain a spot for the Libertarian Party on the ballot. And he ran again in 2016 and secured that spot once again. And after 2016, just decided that his efforts were best placed elsewhere in the Libertarian Party. He's actually running for United States Senate here in West Virginia this year. So he did a fantastic job getting us ballot access and maintaining that. So we've been going strong since 2012, and hopefully I can carry on that tradition after November.
Yeah, no pressure there at all. So
right.
What he said.
No, what is your percentage threshold there?
You know, it's actually my understanding, and I only know West Virginia, but my understanding is that we are blessed in that it's 1%. So as long as I get 1% in the general election in November, then we're good for the next 4 years. The downfall is that the only campaign that counts for maintaining ballot access in West Virginia is the gubernatorial campaign. So we often, you know, in 2016, we ran a full slate of Libertarian candidates for all the statewide offices. We did really well. There were some of them who, you know, were over 10% in terms of, I think it was Secretary of Agriculture, and went well over 10%. But unfortunately, the only thing that counts for us in West Virginia is the gubernatorial race. But it is only 1%. So I'm shooting to get higher than that, but hopefully I at least maintain the 1%. It is really difficult because, you know, the gentleman who ran, I have an awful lot of respect for, and he's my mentor, and, you know, he keeps saying no problem, and my response is, well, if I fail, I'm going to ruin everything that you've been working on for the past 10 years of your life. So it is a lot of pressure for me.
Yeah, I'm sure. In Kentucky, we're kind of in a similar boat, except for us, it's only the presidential race that counts.
Oh.
And it's 2% instead of 1%. And it only being the presidential race is rather infuriating because in Kentucky, there's actually a history, well, nationally, there's various states that have histories with, you know, state-focused parties. And you probably know Ken Mollman. Ken Mollman's actually talked off and on over the years about like a bluegrass party or something like that. And there's been some interest in that, but, you know, such a party in Kentucky would never be able to obtain ballot access, never, ever, ever, because to pull it off, they would have to have a presidential candidate, which would be ridiculous to have a U.S. presidential candidate run in only one state.
Yeah. You know, I think there's a way that you can, at least in West Virginia, there's a way that you can associate with other parties. So the fourth largest party here in West Virginia, Libertarians are the third, is called the Mountain Party. And they're basically the West Virginia version of the Green Party. So when you look at a West Virginia ballot, the Mountain Party candidate for president is actually the Green Party candidate. So there's, at least in West Virginia, some weird way for parties to affiliate that I don't quite understand.
How's David's race doing? Your mentors?
You know, he just decided not that long ago he was going to run. He waited a little bit late. I think that he thought maybe he would be retired this year, but we've drawn him back in and gotten him to put his name on the ballot. But it's going really well. David's really, you know, obviously having run that many races at that type of level here in West Virginia, I mean, he's, you know, one of, you know, the few people, and that there are a handful that are responsible for where we are here today in West Virginia with the Libertarian Party. So he has a great deal of respect. He's been in, you know, our community for a long time here, and we're a really small state, so people know him and respect him. So I'm sure he's going to do fantastic.
Excellent. And did like he recruit you to run, or did something happen and you decided how'd this happen?
The answer is yes, and it's actually kind of a funny story. So my husband ran for West Virginia Attorney General as a Libertarian in 2016, and David Moran knew that he wasn't going to run again, and they actually formed, a committee to talk to folks and, like you do, talk to folks, find out who wants to run. And I have been interested in running, but I felt like it was never something that I had enough gusto, I guess, to do for a lot of reasons. I thought I was perfectly happy, like running the booth, handing out literature, doing the world's, smallest political quiz, people that were walking by at fairs and festivals, handing out water. That's where I felt like my strengths were. So I got a phone call from a couple of people involved in the party that said, "Hey, we'd like to sit down and talk to your husband about running for governor. We'd like you to set up a lunch to do that." And I showed up to the lunch, and that's not what happened. It was to talk to Erika about running for governor. So it was kind of a bait and switch, which was fantastic. And here I am. I did always want to run for something, but my eyes were maybe on the County Board of Education. I didn't really see myself running for governor, but certainly I suppose I talked enough in the right circles about how frustrated I was with our state government. I spent a lot of time in Charleston. I'm a trial lawyer, so I spent a lot of time in our state capitol, working on various bills and things like that, and was just disgusted by the whole process, really, really mad, and talked about that a lot. And I suppose I talked about it enough that people thought, hey, this lady wants to run for governor, and here I am.
Well, I'm going to be up giggling all night because the trial attorney drama major was basically handing out water and thinking she was going to get away with being a libertarian wallflower like too many of us do. So,
yeah.
And we do. I'm horrible about that. I'm horrible. And it's funny because, I do this little show now and stuff like that. Like, I'm an introvert, I'm the person who will walk in the room and stay for 3 hours and not necessarily be noticed. I'll just, and I really have to push myself to be something else. Do you see that in West Virginia, or do you have to work with people on that coming into the party, or what's your experiences?
Yeah, Yes. We're small enough of a party in West Virginia that if you show up, you're going to get a job and we're going to put you to work. So you really can't get away with standing on the sidelines very long. I really only became involved with the Libertarian Party. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but it was sometime around 2013, 2014. Before I knew it, I found myself being the parliamentarian at our state convention. Then all of a sudden I was running for governor. They don't really let you sit alongside the lines here very long. They do let folks retire and step back after they've put in their time, but you really can't show up in West Virginia to a libertarian meeting and run the sidelines very long. Not at all.
Well, I'm kind of getting the vibe they might let you retire, but once you retire, you're required to come back and run for Senate at least once. I think that's what I heard earlier.
That is true. Or once you've run for office and you've done that, then you need to be on the executive committee, or you need to be running a county affiliate. You don't really ever get to just be done. It's not really how we do things.
Right.
So, get away from a hard question here real quick. Let's get you on an easy one. If somebody in West Virginia wants to go out and volunteer to help you, what do they need to do to get on that list to actually go and volunteer to get out there and help?
Well, it's really easy. You can go to my Facebook page, which is Erika Kolenich for Governor of West Virginia, and shoot me a private message on the Facebook page. I actually monitor those and have some folks that help me monitor them. So if I'm not there, they can get to me pretty quickly. Or they can send me an email. My last name is Kolenich, and it's the word for FORWV.com. You can send me a message on my website or email me at Kolenich, the number 4WV@gmail.com. So basically, if you just find any of my sites and shoot me a message, I respond and I get you a job.
She does respond. I didn't think she would respond to somebody that she didn't really know. I mean, I met her in Frankfurt, but other than that, never really even talked to her. But she responded pretty quick, so I can vouch for that.
Yeah,
I try. I'm not going to turn away any help. I need all the help I can get.
This is a really important year for liberty-minded people to be doing things, and I've been telling people for months that this is our year, not because this is our year we get stuff for free, but this is the year where us getting off our butts is pivotal. There's a lot of potential for inflection right now, and we need to be out there working hard to make sure things don't go the wrong way. And better yet, we might even be able to gain a little ground and make things go the right way. So yeah, if you're out there and you're, if you're like me and maybe you're more comfortable working behind the scenes, there's jobs for that too. But I'm telling you, I was like a closet libertarian for about 12 years. And 16 really. And once you get out and start interacting with people, it's great to throw money at people and stuff like that, throw money at campaigns. But once you get out and interact with people, you'll learn that hanging out with libertarians just feels different. And it's funny because my wife had to listen to me say that for like the last 4 or 5 years. And she finally took me up on it like 3 weekends ago. And now she's completely hooked on it. So give it a go. Go out there a couple of times, meet your fellow libertarians. I don't think you're going to regret it. You're going to be pinging me and going, "Thank you so much. I didn't listen, but you were right." So yeah, absolutely. So another of your issues off your campaign page was individual liberties. What are you really telling West Virginia about individual liberties? Where's West Virginia falling down there?
Well, I think that West Virginia does certainly a lot better than some other states that I've been to. So we're a little bit ahead of the curve. But our state motto is "Mountaineers are always free," which is a great motto to have. But slowly, our freedoms are going out the window. And, the issue is that if you're not really paying attention to that, it goes so slowly that you don't necessarily notice it until you sit down and think, wait a second, how did I get here? How did this happen? In West Virginia since 1970, actually, although our population has decreased, our incarceration rates and our jail population has increased 303% since 1970 per capita, which is amazing. That's very, very high. We have one of the highest foster care rates in the nation because of drugs in West Virginia. So the philosophy here in West Virginia is that we put people in jail and we incarcerate people, and we do that very, 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 very quickly. So it's those types of things are under fire here in West Virginia. Certainly there have been talk about red flag laws. They haven't gotten off the ground much, which is, comforting. But certainly, our state seal, I would tell people, we're talking about the Second Amendment, our state seal actually has guns in it. In the logo, there's, at the bottom, there's two muskets laying at the bottom of the picture. So Second Amendment rights are really important to folks here in West Virginia, and there's certainly been talk about limiting those types of things. So just, slowly, and again, West Virginia is a lot better than a lot of other places when it comes to individual liberties, but slowly they're under attack. So we just need to stop that shift and get things going the other way toward liberty.
And my friend Brandon was asking what libertarian issues are specific to an entirely Appalachian state like West Virginia, and why does the LP have the best platform for Appalachians like my family across the straight line in Boyd and Carter counties? I was running to Boyle, that's where I grew up. But anyway, go ahead.
I would say the issues that are most specific to states like West Virginia are really economic opportunities. We're a very, very depressed state economically, because we're so rural here. There are a lot of challenges we have that other states don't have. And for the longest time, our state has been dealing with those economic challenges in the same way, and that's not working. The other interesting part of that is West Virginia is a very, very difficult state to do business in. So even though when the lists come out, the list that if you're at the top of it, it means you're bad, like worst economies. West Virginia is always, at the top of every bad list and the bottom of every good list. But despite that, we just keep doing the same things over and over again. And it seems like, our state's response to it being difficult to do business in West Virginia is let's make it more difficult, which, is tough in West Virginia. The other thing is that then becomes a breeding ground for special interests. In West Virginia, if you're an oil and gas company or a coal company, you can virtually do whatever you want in the state as long as you give your money to the right people. And those types of things are very, very problematic. We have infrastructure problems. We lack broadband access here in West Virginia. One of the interesting things during the coronavirus shutdowns, which we had, is even if you had businesses willing to let people work from home, they didn't have the internet to remote in. I've had problems. I don't live in necessarily in the woods in West Virginia by any means. And, I've had problems with some of these interviews. My campaign's been all digital, and there's times that the internet just stops and you have to find a better way to do things. So those are very difficult. And then we have a lot of problems with our roads in West Virginia, just because we have to go around the mountains, right, to get anywhere. So you could be 10 miles away from something as the bird flies. This can take you over an hour to get there because you have to wind all the way up the mountain. And those are a lot of very, very difficult roads to maintain. And, we haven't always done the best at that. So those type of economy and infrastructure problems are probably the problems that are most unique to West Virginia.
I've always felt like that travel time issue you were just talking about plays into Second Amendment rights too, because when you're 30 miles from town, but that's like an hour. The idea of calling for help's just absolutely preposterous. I mean, that makes no sense at all. Your first line of defense is you. So what about broadband internet? What can be done about? Because Eastern Kentucky obviously has the same problems for the same reasons. So help us out here. What are you looking at?
Well, a combination of things. So the first thing is that one of our major expenses here in the state is exactly what I alluded to a little bit. It goes to the criminal justice system. So in West Virginia, most people that are getting charged with crimes cannot afford attorneys. So you have not only the costs associated with arresting those people, but then prosecuting them, taking them to trial, defending them, housing them, and then paying for their probation. Like, there's this terribly long list of things. And most of the incarcerations here in West Virginia are due to nonviolent drug offenses. So my plan is to eliminate that line item expenditure that is associated with prosecuting nonviolent drug crimes, and devote shift that money over to broadband. Another thing that we do here in West Virginia that we're infamous for doing when it comes to infrastructure is we take a little bit of money and throw it at infrastructure a lot of the time, instead of just taking a lot of the time, doing what parts we can, and then waiting until we have some more money and doing, then the next step. So as opposed to undertaking the whole broadband project, dividing it up in chunks throughout the state into the areas that really need it. Because there are some areas we have that don't suffer as much. For example, we have a northern panhandle that runs, right up into Pittsburgh. Maybe the northern panhandle isn't in need of broadband as much as the area that's in the Monongalia National Forest near the Virginia border. So taking that money that you save from criminal justice reform, devoting that to a broadband project, and then also partnering with private corporations to foster that broadband relationship. As you may, I probably just said like 10 minutes ago, West Virginia is the most difficult state that I've seen to do business in. So those businesses aren't beating down our door to come in and put private broadband access either. You do have a few small companies that will pop up here and there. And again, our state government makes it very difficult for them to operate. So they might get a tower up, get a few things up, and then go out of business because we make it difficult for them. So eliminating some of the unnecessary regulations associated with those businesses, then coupling that friendly atmosphere that we can create for those places to do business, along with the cost savings and a little bit of governmental investment, I think will go a long way.
So what sorts of things does the state do to cause broadband companies issues?
Well, there's several. It's anti-business measures all along the route.
Okay.
We have in West Virginia the same thing that many states do, which is a public utilities commission of the state who regulates a lot of the things that go on with any of these companies that fall under the utility umbrella. So like with most things, there's difficulty, there's corruption, if you don't play by their rules, you can't get certain things. I mean, for example, in the energy industry, you would think if a company wanted to come into West Virginia and run based on wind power or solar power, that would be easy for them to do. And that's actually not true. They thought, West Virginia legislature thought that they were doing people a big favor last year when they started talking about, we're going to allow people to come in, and if they fill out a permit and they pass certain things, we're going to allow them to get a certain percentage of their energy from green power. I mean, and it's just, they pass things like that because they want the coal companies to succeed, because that's the mindset that West Virginia is in. So if they're going to take business away from a coal company, you're going to have to, jump through a bunch of hoops and a bunch of regulations, which is silly. You would think that a company can just come in and run its business on whatever power they want. And that's just not how West Virginia operates. We just make things really, really difficult.
Well, I'm just curious. Go ahead, Toller.
No, go ahead. I'll wait. Go ahead.
One of the things I watch is I watch the progress with Starlink, SpaceX's project to provide broadband internet via low altitude satellites. I was wondering if you keep up with any of that, what your thoughts are on that.
I don't. My husband is the techie in our household, and he does talk about SpaceX a lot, but I'm not familiar with their efforts to institute a broadband service. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's cool. Mention it to your husband. He'll probably geek out for like 45 minutes, but
I'm sure he will. I'll ask him as soon as we're done.
Well, I think it's exciting for both of our states because just sort of the nature of the technology. I mean, most technologies, when you're talking about broadband, you're looking at a technology where things end up being centralized. So it's good for big hubs like New York or LA or something like that. And in this case, you're dealing with satellites that are going to go all the way around the planet, whether you want them to or not. It's not like these things are going to be orbiting New York. It doesn't work that way. So you end up with this matrix that's kind of a grid that covers the planet pretty evenly. So it's your bandwidth per person sort of runs inversely proportional to population density, just naturally. Doesn't matter what Elon wants, that's the way it's going to work. So
right, yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Exactly. So that's why I've been glued on that since I learned about it like 3 or 4 years ago, because where I live's okay, but I picked where I am because it was about as rural as I could go and still get the connectivity I wanted. If we got that, then we'd be really unchained. And I think that's really exciting for both our states, because we want youth to have good connectivity. And one of you, sorry. One of your favorite things about youth retention, and then the discussion of economy, is we need, not everyone, nothing against welding. We need welders. Welders important. Pipe fitting's important. I mean, there's a lot of everything that needs to be done out there. But if you look right now at who's prospering economically, it's technology. And I mean, quite frankly, it's good for me because I write software. And oh, by the way, girls and boys, I do that remotely. I've been doing this from Central Kentucky for 16 years. Clients in the UK, clients in Vegas, clients in the Northeast, clients everywhere. And we can absolutely do this. And not only can we do this, but I think the sort of individualistic mentality that is, better represented in our states than a lot of the Eastern states is actually really good for software engineers, because you need a willingness to go out there and try something your own way, not necessarily the way somebody told you to. And very often in my career, there's a network I can reach out to, but in a lot of ways, really, I'm on my own, because if figuring it out on your own is the point to what I'm doing. I mean, if somebody already knew how to do it, like if I already knew the answer, I would already be done. My favorite thing about what I do is most mornings I get up and don't know how to do what I'm going to do today. That's what I like about it. And I would think that would be great for the youth in our states. I mean, there's a lot of tinkerers in our states. There's a lot of people who like to, take the thing and tear it apart and put it back together in bizarre ways. And, we see the weird redneck videos on YouTube, but this is the same mentality. It's the same thing. There's no difference. A tinkerer is a tinkerer. And we need to let those tinkerers know that they can stay in these states, our states, and they can tinker on technology and make a lot of money. By the way, most of my IT friends have at least one hobby that is very hands-on. Like they'll be into rebuilding race cars, or they'll be into welding. They'll be into gardening, or all of them. I don't know why. It's just true. So just because you're interested in one of those, hands-on things doesn't mean you can't be interested in technology too, because I see it all the time going the other way. Mm-hmm. I'll shut up now. This isn't supposed to be an interview of me.
It's fantastic.
I get excited.
I'm doing a watch party with this on Facebook. And of course, I have a lot of truck driving friends of mine that watch it. And I know one question that's very popular specifically to West Virginia that is talked about and asked quite a bit within the industry, and that's the West Virginia Turnpike. What would you do differently to make sure that that is upkept by the tolls that they are charging?
Well, I think it goes back to what we were talking about. There's really two problems with the Division of Highways, which is our the subcategory of our Department of Transportation that maintains our roads here in West Virginia. And the first one is that we are so administratively top heavy in the Division of Highways here in West Virginia that our money never actually gets to maintain the turnpikes or any of the rest of the roadways, because we're too busy paying a bunch of people to do the same thing. So what happens here in West Virginia is our Division of Highways is divided up into different districts. And then there's a central office. So the central office is in our capital, and they have these different district offices. But at the district office level, you have the same managerial structure as there is at the central office level. So you're really paying two groups of employees to do the same thing. And then you have these managerial structures and administrative structures at all these different divisions around the state. And if you look at the numbers of what we spend on the administration of the Division of Highways instead of the folks that are out there actually fixing the road, their salaries and supplies, it's staggering. So that's the first thing, is that I would eliminate all of that top-heavy administration. Each one of our counties in West Virginia has a county commission, and there's no reason that those individual Division of Highways offices couldn't somehow be supervised in a cooperative capacity locally with the county commission. The second thing that we do in West Virginia is what I mentioned earlier, that when we're maintaining our roads, we throw a little bit of money at it a lot of the time. So we use bubble gum and duct tape every other week to fix the roads instead of just fixing them the way that they need to be fixed in the very beginning. And that's led to a significant problem with the roadways in West Virginia. Not only the turnpike, but the turnpike's particularly bad, but everywhere else. This is a true story. I was out delivering yard signs in a remote area of West Virginia a couple of weeks ago, and you thought that there was a roadway there. There wasn't a roadway. My husband was driving. The edge of the road just crumbled away, and our car just went boop, on its side off the edge of the roadway. So my car was the casualty to my campaign. And it's because the roads were so poorly maintained, they were crumbling away at the sides, and we just hit the wrong area, and it just took our entire car and flipped it on its side. So it's definitely bad. I think a lot of the times people travel on some of our more major interstates like I-79, and they think, well, the roads aren't that bad. There are areas in West Virginia where the roads are completely washed out. So we just need to develop a plan, figure out which roads are the most traveled and the most important, and start putting money to fix those roads the right way the first time, so that we're not constantly back there every summer and every year fixing them. It wasn't last year, but at some point in time in the past 4 years, our governor we ran an election to allow our governor to get a road bond, to take out a bond for the roads for what he called his roads to prosperity. There has been no prosperity at all. There has been no change in the roads at all. So, we just need to be smarter about how we manage the money. We have plenty. People talk about it being a lack of money and a lack of tax base. We have plenty of money to fix the roads in West Virginia. We just need to do it the right way the first time, and there wouldn't be a problem.
Did you at least get a picture of the car off the road, the collapsed road?
I didn't. And in hindsight, I really wish I would have, but it was startling. We had been driving around all day. After I climbed up out of the car, because, I'm on the side, and I climbed up out of the car, and, I'm panicking and trying to figure out how we can get off the road. It wasn't really until a very nice man that was a passerby figured out with my husband how they could get the car out without calling a tow truck, which was very creative. Then the radiator was busted, and it just wasn't in my mind. I wasn't thinking, but afterwards, I definitely thought I should.
Yeah.
This is a prime example. I should have taken a picture, but
yeah,
I did total my car though. It's gone. So
I don't know exactly what to do with it, but it's kind of like I heard a rumor there was a problem with our roads, and I confirmed it personally. But
well,
just
yeah,
that just goes to show that government causes problems even whenever you're trying to get into it. So.
Yeah. So Brandon also wanted to know what your biggest grievances are with Jim Justice's tenure.
Well, how long do we have to talk? There are a lot of them.
Really about 10 minutes. That's about it.
Okay. Well, the first and the biggest issue that I have with Jim Justice is, he is the biggest example of why the two parties, the Republicans and Democrats, are manipulating people, and they're really the same thing. And if James heard me talking on Larry Sharpe, he heard me say this. Our governor, first of all, he's the wealthiest person in the state, literally. He's West Virginia's only billionaire. He's a wealthy coal baron. So my first issue with him is he has no real ability to relate to West Virginia people. He puts on this grandfatherly air as if he understands, but someone who's a billionaire has absolutely no understanding of what West Virginians normally go through on a day-to-day basis. The second thing is that Jim Justice told everybody in the state of West Virginia he was a Democrat. He ran as a Democrat. He was elected as a Democrat. And within months, literally months, he brought Donald Trump to West Virginia, held a big conference, and said, "Surprise, I'm a Republican. I'm switching my party." Nothing about Jim Justice has changed. He was the same person that ran as a Democrat. He's now the same person as a Republican, but he lied to people. He switched his party affiliation simply to win an election, which I feel is dishonest and untruthful, which is the biggest problem with politicians, is that they're dishonest and untruthful. He is a very poor representation of the state of West Virginia. He doesn't conduct himself in a professional manner whatsoever. One of the first things he did to let the state legislature know how he felt about their budget is he literally brought cow manure out on a silver platter, held a press conference, and said, "This is what I think of the budget." And it was a big plate of manure. He just engages in theatrics and hijinks that are not attractive on the national level. If we're talking about we want to keep youth here in West Virginia and we want to show the world that that we aren't the place that needs to be at the bottom of all the good lists and the top of all the bad lists, he puts us squarely in that camp in terms of the image that he puts off. He has continued to, even once he became a Republican, he has continued to spend money here in West Virginia at an astronomical rate. Every time we have a surplus, instead of talking for 10 seconds about cutting taxes, which he never does, he finds another project to spend it on. Most recently, that project was adding a new special drug enforcement agency to the state of West Virginia. So he continues to take more money from us. He spends it in an irresponsible manner. He can't be trusted. He talks out of both sides of his mouth. He's a very inconsistent leader in regards to the coronavirus specifically. He had a press conference one night and said, "I'm not going to tell you all not to go out to eat. If you want to go to Bob Evans, go to Bob Evans." Within days, he had closed down the restaurants. He doesn't present a consistent, transparent leadership ability in any way at all. He's an embarrassment. He might be a good grandfather. He's not a good governor. And we could go on and on and on.
I had never really connected the two, but even when I saw Brandon's question, I was like, I'm supposed to know more about Jim Justice. And then you started talking, and when you mentioned the West Virginia's only billionaire, I remembered, yeah, he bought Anderson Dean Farms near me. It was owned by a rather wealthy guy, and he passed away, and his daughter sold off the estate. But Anderson Dean Farms was always immaculate in that they had these nice black wooden fences that were always very, very well maintained. Had a nice show barn. This was here in Central Kentucky. I'm a little on the south side of the bluegrass in terms of horse country. You go a couple of counties south, you're running into Casey County, which is westernmost Appalachia. But really nice place, and he bought it, and it just literally started falling apart faster than I thought it could. it's like, what did you do?
That's probably where he got his manure for a silver platter.
Right.
But I don't think it was more than 2 or 3 years before you had like planks just literally falling off the fence. But they've sold it off, and the some of the new owners are taking better care of it now. But yeah, it was a total just buy and then piece it out kind of operation. It was sad, but sorry, go ahead.
I don't know, that's interesting to me, which reminded me of, some of the other things that Mr. Justice is infamous for here in the state of West Virginia is he doesn't pay his taxes. None of his corporations ever pay his taxes, so he's always involved in some litigation with the tax department. One of his companies was getting sued. One of the companies he owed was getting sued by another company. Lo and behold, the state of West Virginia offered the company that was suing him a sweetheart deal to open up something in West Virginia. And I mean, this is the type of behavior that he engages in. He gets, one of the biggest stories last year was he got a really sweet farm subsidy for one of the farms he owned, and he's a billionaire. Mm-hmm. So he really knows how to work the system. There was a big issue last year. Mr. Justice owns a very famous resort in West Virginia called the Greenbrier. The Greenbrier is located not in the state capital, but further south. And Jim Justice lives in Greenbrier County. Constitution says that you're supposed to live in Charleston. He doesn't live in Charleston, and he takes a helicopter quite frequently on the state's dime back and forth where he wants to go because he doesn't want to live in the state capital. So he's flying back and forth all the time with my money, which I'm resentful of because I pay my taxes. Sure. And I'm paying for someone to fly all over West Virginia who doesn't pay their taxes. He's just not a good
helicopter time is not cheap. Helicopter time's expensive. A lot of maintenance in helicopters. I'm always ranting about that, and I'm sure they do the same thing in West Virginia, but they're buzzing up and down the hollers looking for marijuana. It's like, come on.
Yes, they are. In West Virginia,
money.
Believe it or not, we even look for moonshine. We prosecute people in West Virginia fairly regularly for moonshine.
Oh, no.
I'll keep my mouth shut.
And in Kentucky, a lot of what they end up confiscating and burning is ditchweed. So it's I read maybe like a decade ago, something like 90% of what they burned was ditchweed anyway. It's like, good job, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've consumed, where are we? We've consumed about 54 minutes, and I told Blog Talk that we weren't going to be talking for more than an hour, so we got to get wrapping things up. But is there anything you really wanted to get out before we call it a night, Erika?
People ask me all the time, and I mean, you all are libertarians, so you'll understand this. People ask me all the time why I'm running and, why are you running for governor? And I just, I get so so frustrated with people being elected to represent us that don't. As we talked about tonight, West Virginia has so many needs that other states don't. It's not a one-size-fits-all government, but our elected representatives here in West Virginia, they take their marching orders from their political parties. And those political parties aren't even getting their marching orders from state political parties. They're coming from the national parties. And they're coming into West Virginia with solutions that have nothing to do with West Virginia. They're pushing the same agendas in West Virginia as they are in California or, New York, which is so silly. And I love the people of West Virginia. I love them with all my heart. And it makes me so sad that they're being taken advantage of. So I'm just running to let people know that they have a choice. Whether or not they agree with me or disagree with me, I have new ideas that no one's talking about because West Virginia's always done the same thing the same way. And I just really hope that this year people can understand that it doesn't have to be this way. And now's the time to try to change that.
Well, you pretty much have me tearing up, Erika. But yeah, absolutely. If you're in West Virginia, I'm sure Erika feels like this too. It's magical, the idea of just giving someone an option, because we've all been at the ballot before, and you don't have anyone to vote for who represents you. No one even close. And that's part of why I'm running too. But it's even better if the person isn't just voting L. Hey, this isn't D or R. I'll vote this because I'm tired of those guys. It's even better if they know what they're actually voting for. It's even better if they get a chance to research it before they're in the ballot box. Mm-hmm. So this goes back to getting active, guys. If you're out there and you're a libertarian, wherever you are, if you're in West Virginia, help get word out about Erika. And of course, Joe Jorgensen, jo20.com. If you're in District 2 Kentucky, get out word about me. If you're in Senate District 78 in Kentucky, get out word about Toller. Just wherever you are, go look at your local candidates, look at your state level candidates, look at jo20.com. Make sure as many people as possible understand what their options are. And some of them aren't going to want to hear it, and that's fine. But, at least lead the horse to water. Leading the horse to water is your job. Get out there and lead the horse to water. We're here doing our part best we can. Erika, thank you so very much for running.
Thank you.
It's not my state, but it's a beautiful state.
Well, I know just about every candidate in Kentucky. We know who you are because we went to a class with you in Frankfort, and they're all like, "Oh, she's so amazing." So, I mean, if West Virginia can see that, what we've seen in just 2 days, and they vote you in there, I mean, they're going to have a great governor, that's for sure.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for joining tonight. And thank you for joining us, Erika. And keep in touch and let us know if you need anything. Have a great evening, everyone.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.